What's up, everybody? SJG, and we got a special treat for you. Someone I've been looking forward to speaking with for a long time. His name is AJ English. Thrilled to actually get you on the phone and talk to you a little bit. I won't keep you for too long, but just get a chance to, tell your story a little bit. HBCUs, and unless ESPN decides to come down and let us kiss their heels. You don't get a lot of stories on HBCU athletes other than just a handful here or there. So I just wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and your story. I was doing some research last week, and so Wilmington, Delaware, actually a good friend of mine is from there, and he definitely reveres you. And then I got a chance to meet Ray Anderson when he was playing at Union, and he spoke highly of you as well. What was it like? What was your basketball startup like? Who were your heroes early on? When you were growing up.
Well, growing up, it was the local guys, man. Just guys that are a little older. Delaware is a small state, so back then, we didn't have a whole lot of guys that were playing, or probably even having aspirations of playing in the professional ranks. You know what I mean? It was more about just getting out of Wilmington, man. Wilmington is, the nation is saying now, Wilmington has been a tough little city for a long time.
Right.
And, it's because we're kind of nested in between, Jersey, Philadelphia, you know what I mean, in that area, so you deal with a lot of the issues that they deal with,
Right.
So basketball was just, what we used, me and my friends, what we used is kind of just, to stay out of trouble and just deal with, coming from a single parent home, growing up in the inner city,
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it was for me, that's what it was for me. Basketball really wasn't my first love. Baseball was,
okay.
But in the inner city, also AJ, also my son, it was his first love as well too. But for me in the inner city, not a lot of guys really interested in playing in the baseball league, so I kind of played with in the Spanish league, in the Roberto Clemente league, and my mom worked 2 jobs. So I had to kind of sign myself up in some of the leagues and get there the best way I could, and when my grandma was living, she would try to get me back and forth as much as possible.
Right.
But the guys that I kind of grew up under in the Boys and Girls Club is actually a guy there named Donald Dutton. Donald Dutton is from Wilmington.
Mm-hmm.
Played at the same high school I played with. Donald ended up playing at the University of Oregon before transferring home to University of Delaware. So he was the guy that I would say, as far as hard work and dedicating yourself to your craft, he kind of helped me with that. Actually, he helped me get into the same high school that he went to Howard Career Center. And I got in, a couple days before school started, because I was supposed to go to another school because of busing. And he had to get me down there and sign me up because my mom couldn't get off work, so. But he was a guy. He was definitely one of the guys that I looked up to. And but I grew up around Terrence Stansberry, around the corner from him.
Right, yeah. From I remember seeing about him from the dunk contest and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. So he was a guy that I got to see at an early age. So we grew up around the corner from each other, and in the parks and in the recreational center.
Gotcha. So you went to Howard Career Center, and I see you guys won back-to-back championships.
No, we ended up losing the second one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I must have caught when you guys were driving for the second one. So.
Yeah. We had a good team. The way Wilmington was you either went to Howard Career Center or you went to Wilmington High School. All of the better African American basketball players. Howard is I don't know what they deem that now, but it's a historical monument, you know, because it was, at one time, it was the only school that blacks could attend in Delaware, in the whole state of Delaware. So you had people coming from downstate because that was doing segregation. That was the only school you could attend. So, history with Howard. You know, it kind of changed now. It ain't the Howard from back in the day. And of course, it's not the same teams from back in the day, but all of us growing up, we wanted to go to Howard. You know what I mean? So we would get all the better ball players there at one time. So we had some pretty good teams.
Right. And so, I was reading the article. April 24th, 1986 is when when they announced that you're going to Virginia Union. What was the recruitment process like for you? I see that some schools like UNLV was there. Looks like you almost became a running rebel. Villanova, DePaul, and Providence. Just talk about when you started to get noticed and get those programs starting to look at you and what that was like.
Well, I mean, just going back to my 9th and 10th grade year, I didn't really know what I had, just being honest. I grew up, Dad wasn't around. Just mom worked 2 jobs, so, when my grandma passed away, she passed away in my 11th grade year, so, I wasn't serious about the schoolwork part of it, the student athlete part, it was just, basketball for me was, I wanted to get out of Wilmington. And so I wasn't serious about, the classroom. So my sophomore year, I was leading the state in scoring that year as well. And I flunked off the team. We were number 1 in the state, and we ended up losing in the semifinals. So my freshman and sophomore year, I didn't really do well in school. So that's how I ended up at Virginia Union, because I was Prop 48. But that's how Virginia Union got Charles Oakley, because we were Prop 48.
Right.
So back then, people weren't taking the prep school layover and, or the red shirt year. We wanted to go and play right away. And Virginia Union was the school, was the only Division II school that I visited. I didn't even look at any other Division II schools. I didn't know what a HBCU really was back then. I thought I was going to end up going to a big time school, riding that wave on and, into a professional career. So when I was Prop 48, some JUCOs, was a bunch of JUCOs at the end that I really wasn't entertaining at the beginning. And then Virginia Union was the only Division II school. And then when I got down there and I saw the talent level, I was like, oh my goodness, And went up to Villanova. Riley Massimino was up there at the time. I think he passed away. Tarkanian was at UNLV. Providence, got some letters from Providence. Got letters from mostly the D1s. Not all offers, but, interest.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Definitely, that Prop 48. I was actually talking with Lavelle Moten a couple years ago, who went in to the Hall of Fame when you went in. He was kind of saying the same thing too, where a lot of guys back then, there wasn't, the reclassifying to another year, the prep school thing. It was like people just weren't really taking those routes, and now it's different. It's totally different. It's amazing how those things evolve. But you get there to Virginia Union, and what do you remember? What Coach Robbins, what his pitch was to you for coming to Virginia Union?
It was more so, he kind of was almost apologizing that I couldn't go and play big time Division I. But he thought as though if I came to Virginia and did what I was supposed to do, I could accomplish the same thing at Virginia Union at a historically black college that I could do at any of those other schools, going to have a professional career. And it worked out. I mean, he didn't and he didn't have to sell the talent. I mean, of course, the facilities weren't there. You know, you walk in and you see this, you know, this gym, you're like, oh my goodness, you know.
Right.
But when I saw the talent level, I was like, like Terry Davis was supposed to go to Georgia. Jamie Waller, I don't know where he's supposed to go, but he ended up getting drafted to the NBA. He was on that team. Tony Dallas, who was the shooting guard, because I had to play the point guard because Tony Dallas was just a heck of a shooter. He was supposed to go to the University of Maryland out of Martinsville. They were number one in the country. And we had Donnell Parks, who came in with me from Richmond, who was the area player of the year, 6'5", 6'6" shooting guard. He was getting interest from Georgetown. I mean, so we just had it was just a bunch of talent there, man. And coach was just like, you know, if you come here, son, you do what you're supposed to do. You work your tail off, you know, things are going to work out for you regardless, you know. And then it didn't hurt that Charles Oakley had just got drafted the year before that, you know. And then after speaking to Charles, you know, it was almost a no-brainer.
What's up, everybody? SJG here, and thank you guys for listening to HBCU Game Day. We'll get back to the content in just a moment, but I want to thank you all for following us. Now, one of the things you can do in addition to following us and subscribing to our content is to also donate to support HBCU Game Day. We put a lot of time and effort into this to make sure that you guys enjoy what we put out. So if you'd like to help us continue to make great content like this, check out the link below, hbcugameday.com/donate, and see how you can help us continue to make it better. Yeah, definitely. Charles went, I think, 9th overall out of a D2 school in the mid '80s. So that just shows you, that just shows you what was being accomplished there. So you get down to Virginia Union, and you guys are every year in and out. You're one of the top teams there in the CIAA, but the CIAA was a really tough league back then because you got down the road, not too far. You got Norfolk State, who was really riding high, and they got a guy there. I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet, but I've read a lot about him as well, Ralph Talley. And I think you guys had some battles. But yeah, just talk about playing against a guy like him, and maybe some of the other guys that you recall playing against back there in the CIAA that maybe help elevate your game and keep you sharp out there.
Yeah, well, Ralph, when I got down there, Ralph was kind of running the league. I was a freshman, he was a senior, and he was a kid from up north, not too far from me, from Atlantic City, and all I was hearing about is Ralph Talley, you know what I'm saying? Like, so all of the people even in Richmond, they was like, this guy, Ralph Talley. So the funny thing is, the first time we played them, I came back from Christmas break late, so Coach Robbins, the discipline was, I couldn't, a couple games I didn't even play, and that Norfolk State game was one of the games I didn't play. So, but that was the first time I got a chance to see Ralph. I had watched him on a couple of BT games, but that's the first time I got to see him live, and they beat us pretty handily down there, down in Norfolk, and he did his thing. I don't know what he ended up having. I think it was 30-something that game, and and I was just looking, a lot of quickness, explosive. Probably only 6'6", 6'1", nice elevation on his jump shot, and he was confident. He was a senior, he was confident, and they beat us pretty good. And that year we started over number 1 in the country, and then I think they might have got up there for a couple of games or whatever. But the second game, I think it was a little closer, but I played that game. I started that game. And that was my first game playing against him, and that was probably my best game that year, up to that point, my freshman year. I think I ended up with like 28, 29 or something, but I was playing the point guard, so, we matched up a couple of times together, but it wasn't me guarding him guarding me. And he did his thing again. They beat us. They didn't beat us as well as they beat us down there, but they beat us, I want to say 10 points. I ended up leading the team in scoring, you know. So I played pretty decent. I felt good because he was kind of the measuring stick in the conference. And later on that year, we met them in the CIAA championship. Richmond Coliseum, sold out, you know, 14, 50, whatever they hold, how many people they hold. And I'm sure, you know, in the barbershops, everybody was thinking, you know, Norfolk was going to beat them. We ended up beating them in the CIAA championship that year, my freshman year. So, but Ralph he was tough, man. He was a heck of a player. A lot of speed, could come at you full speed and pull up, you know. So, I mean, and I was used to that style of play just from being up north, you know what I mean? Because that's what you're going to see in the playground. You know, you're going to see in the playground, if you just can't stay in front of somebody, you're going to have a problem. And he stayed playing downhill, if you understand that terminology, meaning he's coming at you full speed all the time, like Ray Anderson would do, but Ray wasn't the shooter he was. You know, Ralph could stretch the floor. He could come at you full speed, get you on your heels, and raise up. And, you know, then it didn't hurt that he can leave the floor pretty decent as well. He can get up. So,
he was kind of ahead of his time, right? It sounds like that was like 3-point line.
He was an Iverson before there was a Iverson. No question about it.
Wow.
No question about it.
Wow, that's high praise coming from somebody like you. But, you know, you talk about that. You also played with a lot of great, talented players who made the NBA draft, who drafted in the NBA and played. Let's just talk about Terry Davis. Talk about him.
Terry was just a workhorse. But Terry was more... I think he didn't really get to show how offensively gifted he was. Nice touch to be a big guy, left-handed, because the game back then was played inside out. So if he was a big guy, they wanted you to get on the block, play with your back to the basket, that type thing. But Terry can shoot the ball. 10, 15 feet, he could just flat out shoot the ball. The coach thing was, big fella, and we need you up underneath the basket, that type thing. And then Terry was my roommate. So we had a inside-outside thing, but I think, looking back at it, me and Terry, because we're good friends to this day, and we talk all the time, if we would have kind of opened it up a little bit more, that would have been hard to guard. You know what I'm saying? Versus come down, got to throw it inside, see what you got inside. If you ain't got nothing inside, you kick it out, like the game is played now. Virginia Union, if we play in today's time, oh my goodness, well, we can just come down off the break and shoot a three. Oh my goodness. So, and Terry was one of those guys a big guy that could stretch the floor. But he didn't get a chance to show that, because the game, like I said, the game was more slow, it was more of a half-court game if you didn't have a fast break versus we didn't run to the three-point line. You ran to get a dunk or you ran to the block. And Terry was just, probably one of the better gifted big men with a nice touch that I played with on any level. Right. And then you got Jamie Waller, who was a guy that maybe a lot of folks, didn't have didn't make it to the pros in the same way that you and Terry and some of the other guys did. But every time I'm reading, he was right there. Just talk to me about him as a guy who never got a chance to see him play. Yeah, well, Terry is Jamie's homeboy. They're both from Halifax, Virginia. Same high school, the whole nine. Jamie was just the epitome of an athlete, a swing man that can just leave his feet, strong, powerful. He could get to his spot. If he got to his spot, he was going to jump over top of you. Shoot a little bank shot. But Jamie ended up getting drafted by the New Jersey Nets. The last draft that they had more than 2 rounds. The 3rd round. I think Ralph went 3rd round and Jamie went 3rd round. Right. Yeah, I think I read somewhere at one point briefly, I think they were both the Bulls signed both of those guys. So that. Yeah. So Jamie was the man on the team my freshman year. And once he validated me basically, once he said, you know what, this kid can play, everybody else kind of fell in line. He led us in scoring that year. And that was just J-Mo, and he was just like, he trusted me, and when he saw that, you know what, I knew what to do with the ball, and they didn't have to, kind of, nurture me through because I was a freshman. They was like, oh, this kid can play, and that's what it was, and that happened in the preseason when we would go to other schools. We would go over to VCU to play, or some of the other schools, UVA and University of Richmond, they would come over to Union to play. And he just trusted me with the ball. He would get the ball to me because he knew I would get it to him in places where he could be effective. And Jamie he was a workhorse. He was just a workhorse. So we had you're talking about 3 NBA guys, and Tony Dallas wasn't far off. I mean, possibly 4 NBA guys on the Division II team, the CIAA. And I don't even think people really understand the magnitude of that. You don't even have that on big time Division I schools now. You might have 2 or 3 guys, unless you're talking about the Dukes and the places like that where guys are one and done, Kentucky's. But I'm talking about on a regular Division I team, you may have one guy that maybe have an opportunity to play in the league. But to have 3 or 4 guys that be invited to camp, to go to veterans camp, and possibly play some games in the league, that was, I don't think people really understand what Coach Robbins put together back then in the early 80s through the 90s.
Yeah, definitely. And even though all of the talent you guys had on that team, it still was not an easy road. I think it's not an easy road. I think 88, Virginia State ended up winning the CIAA that year. And then 89, and I think 89 you guys won the CIAA, and then State, I think you guys Central ended up winning the entire thing after you guys won the national championship. I mean, they won the national championship after you guys won the CIAA. So
yeah, because the CIAA was stacked. The CIAA was probably equivalent. I think it was a better league then than what the MEAC is now, talent-wise. Is there an NBA type caliber guy in the MEAC? I don't know if there is. I haven't been following the MEAC. But back then, you might have, just in the CIAA alone, you might have 3 to 4 guys that might end up in somebody's camp. Because Leonard Harris, who was with Virginia State at the time, he ended up in camp with the Washington Bullets, who was a senior at that time. Barry Mitchell, who played along with Ralph Talley, he ended up in camp with somebody. So the kid that was at Elizabeth State, Kenny, can't think of his name. He was supposed to go to UNC and ended up at Elizabeth City. He ended up playing with the Indiana Pacers. The kid that was at Fayetteville, Darrell Armstrong, he ended up having a long career with the Orlando Magic. So, and we was all in the CIAA at the same time.
Right.
So back then, I mean, and then everybody had a true center. Everybody, had what they considered a true center. So, I mean, it was tough. Like, you stepped out there in that CIAA and you ain't strapped up. You had your hands full. Right.
Yeah, no doubt. And so, you talk about that. Who was you guys' biggest rival at the time? I know, like, when you come in and Norfolk was kind of the team to beat. Who was the team that you guys enjoyed beating the most? I mean, obviously you guys were the hunted because you guys had all the talent and things like that. But who was the school that you enjoyed beating the most? Or what were some of the more memorable games outside that championship game?
Well, I mean, you had Norfolk State, of course. You had Virginia State. You had Hampton, Norfolk State, Virginia State, Hampton. All of those games were big games for us. All of those, and Winston-Salem State, of course. And Winston-Salem State. All of those games were big games for us because you didn't go in knowing that you were going to win the game. You had to play. You had to play. My senior year, Hampton ended up beating us in the semifinals the last 15 15 seconds or whatever. No, we missed a foul shot. We had a gentleman, one of our players on the line, and he missed a foul shot to tie it up to go in overtime. My sophomore year, Lamont Walker from Virginia State hits a shot at the buzzer, a three at the buzzer to beat us, and they win the CIAA that year. So, and these are teams that we might have beat 2 times during the course of the year. We always split a win-win with Norfolk State. We were in the same division, and we were always, 1-1. Even my senior year, we were undefeated at the Ag Center. And I think we ended up losing by 1 point, 69-70, when we were undefeated, number 1 in the country.
Right. Yeah, a lot of talent. And just talk about you. Your senior year comes up. You've gone through the ranks. You've kind of risen, and then it's your year, 1990. You're the D2 Player of the Year. Just talk about your senior season and how well you felt prepared. Going into the NBA draft.
Well, to be honest with you, going into my junior year, I felt better. I was on a USA Select team, the only Division II black collar HBCU player that was selected to play on that team that toured China to Taipei. The rest of the guys are Billy Owens and Greg Anthony, Felton Spencer, Sean Kemp. We had like 8 guys on that team, 7 or 8 guys that ended up playing in the NBA, having an NBA career. And I was the only Division II, and I was the only HBCU guy on that team. So that summer, which was my sophomore summer, Big House Games was the head coach, and my coach, Dave Robbins, was the assistant coach. And I think we was in China for 30 days. We ended up going undefeated, winning the gold or whatever, and I led the team in scoring. So from that point, that was going into my junior year. From that point on, I knew I belonged. I knew I belonged because, these guys like Billy Owens was only going to play 1 year at Syracuse, and he went to the league with the number 3 pick. Sean Kemp didn't even go to college. Alfonso Ellis, Felton Spencer. We had some. It was LeBron Ellis. We had some talent, on that team. Elridge Ratasnu, who played a little while with the Charlotte Hornets at the time. For the University of Washington. So when I went up there and I played that summer, leading up to my junior year, that was probably the year that I made the leap. But I probably could have done what I'd done my senior year, my junior year, but Terry Davis was still there. So I think we both ended up averaging like 20 that year, somewhere around there. So it was kind of sharing the wealth. My senior year, I didn't have a dominant big. That was the first time I didn't have a dominant big that I had to get the ball to. So Coach Robbins kind of gave me the freedom, on the perimeter. And if I had a smaller guard on me, I could post up. The plays ran through me. And usually Coach would run the plays through a big man. And that was probably one of the first times he ran his system through a guard. So I just had the opportunity. You know what I mean? The team needed me to score. He needed me. I probably could have done the same thing my junior year, but, Terry needed his touches as well.